Hello to all of our friends out in Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn land. I am super excited to come to you. I know it's a little late this evening. It's 10:30 East Coast time tonight, but when you've got people like Nate who is with us this evening, who is just a powerhouse in what he does and super busy and traveling and all the things, we take the time that we can get them and we say thank you. So Nate, thank you for being with us.
It's good because there's probably parents sitting in their living rooms or their bedrooms right now going, what is my high school junior, senior going to be doing? Especially maybe my high school senior who's probably less than 90 days away from graduation. Open your mind to that one and wondering, what is Johnny going to do? What's Johnny? Anybody call their kids Johnny anymore? You would know more than I.
Yeah. There's a few.
Are the common names still out there? But what are they going to do? And maybe this is a good time that it popped in and they pulled up and they can watch wherever they're watching tonight.
Absolutely. So tonight we have Nate Clayberg. If you want more information as we go through, his website is very straightforward. It's nateclayberg.com. He's one of our trusted experts here at Parent Tween Connection, and he is a career navigator, or college and career navigator. I remember early on, Nate, one of the first conversations we had, you said that you saw yourself actually as like an economic developer. You recognize that so many families spend $250,000 at this point on a college education, only for the kid to decide or to discover that they freaking hate what they're doing, but they're stuck and they've spent all this money. And then, they get to our age and they're like, dude, life sucks. Like, what have I done with my life? I've not had an impact, or whatever the things that come up when you hit your 40s are, right? And you're like, this is dumb. Like, how do we help kids figure it out earlier on before they spend all these gobs and gobs of money and end up spending their time unhappy with what they've pursued?
Yeah, the challenge there is in the coaching I do, and I'm my day job is I'm with the CAPS Network, which is a profession-based learning nonprofit based out of the Kansas City area with about 15,000 students we serve in 22 states and over 100 programs, and this is where I get to still dabble in this with career exploration stuff. But yeah, you mentioned it in there. My background is economic development. For the last about 15 years, I'm one of about 1,100 certified economic developers in the country. And it's a unique position I feel like I'm in, where I'm embedded with education and trying to be that translator between business and education, which you feel like, well, that's easy. No, it's not as easy as it should be. When you look at one operates 9 months a year, one operates 12 months a year, and it snows one day, they shut down, but the business keeps going. So, in my background in economic development, I would talk to companies day in, day out, and they would talk about the workforce challenge. And this is going on about 10 years when I first heard about this, that they'd say they can't find people, but they can't find workers, but they can find people. And that came down to durable skills, which I really have been advocating here the last few years. Durable skills, we've heard of, soft skills, human skills. My favorite's 21st century skills, which are now 24 years old. Think about that one for a little bit. So durable skills kind of plays into all sorts of areas of all the things that those employers were talking about they needed. So that kind of opened my eyes to, okay, what's going on? What's going on with education? And then you start seeing, well, how do we help these students? How do we help these employers meet where they need to meet, down the line? I guess going back to the question of, you said $250,000. Would you walk into a Porsche dealership and spend $250,000 because you thought it was cool, and then you walk out the door and went, oh, now I got to pay for it? Especially if you're not paying out of pocket or whatever, it's still one of those things like, do I really need this? Do I really need X university or whatever level you feel like you need to be in to get there? And it becomes it unfortunately becomes a vanity piece, I feel like, for parents and students believing that's where they need to be just because of where it's at. And no matter where you're watching this, and I know different parts of the country have some different philosophies on some of these. When you look at entrance exam or getting into colleges, which that's a big thing right now. Letters are coming out or notifications are coming out. But
and there's a whole giant mess here in the U.S. with the FAFSA this year. Like, we won't even get into that conversation.
Tell me about it. I got a junior in college. I'm just waiting to see, is there anything going to happen? We probably won't get anything, but I feel like I still need to do it. right?
Absolutely.
Um,
If you're not tuning in from the States, just be grateful at this point, because that's the free application for federal student aid, that there is just a whole disaster going on in terms of them actually quantifying what students are eligible for, yada yada, crazy, not pertinent to here, but just be grateful.
So yeah, you're looking at trying to see what kind of money you can get to get into a place that you don't really know. You know you want to be there, but you maybe don't know why you're going to be there and what it's going to mean for
Hmm.
you. That's the
Right.
conversations I started having about, I guess, 6, 7 years ago. Probably realistically, unofficially before that. But with high school students, just that age-old question: what are you doing after high school?
Hmm.
And come to find out here, really in the last 4 years, students really hate that question.
Hmm.
At Thanksgiving, it's going to come up here next week at Easter. Uncle Mike's going to say, "Hey, Clarissa, you're a senior. What are you doing next year?" And you're like, "Can I just hide under the table, please, and get my
Right.
cranberries and move on?" And realistically, that answer from to Uncle Mike, if you just say college, he's going to probably move on. But to Uncle Nate, I'm going to say, "Well, why are you going to college? And then what are you going to do what are you going to do with it?"
Hmm.
And that's the extra question you need to have, that I don't think we spend a lot of time, and it evolves out, especially as busy as I say kids are, but families are when it comes to
Hmm.
kids' activities. We start talking about, Stephen, how is, I'm going to pull these regular names out. How is, how's football? How's softball? How's the violin lessons? How's this and that? We stop having the fun conversation of what do you want to be when you grow up, I think after they're like 5 or 6, right? And
Sure.
until they're a senior in college or a senior in high school, where they start asking the question again that you haven't been asked for a while, or maybe you haven't even thought about for a while. And the big thing I'm seeing right now is you'll get an answer. You can get an answer from a student. I want to be an engineer. I want to get into nursing. I want to be a physical therapist. You can come up with all these different things that most likely I'm finding the engineering's the fun one. When I say, well, what kind of engineer? And
Hmm.
they look at you and I went,
Hmm.
oh, someone just told you you should be an engineer because there is a pathway. It's a good paying job. And you probably are good at math and science and maybe played with Legos when you grew up. So they thought, okay, here is the pathway for you. And you're like, you know what? That's a good idea. Let's check the box. I'm going to have that answer. But I don't really understand what it is until I start taking that engineering courses at that land grant university and realize I don't really enjoy this as much as I thought I did, but
Sure.
maybe I enjoy finance. And this was a young man I had a couple of weeks ago, mechanical engineering, went through my process through personality assessments, conversation, very interested in the world of insurance. It was just like, okay, we did a whole 180 on this, didn't we?
Wow.
But we started talking about sales engineering, which is a big
Hmm.
demand position right now as well. And he hadn't heard of
Oh.
that. And I thought, okay, well, how do you combine your interest from an engineering into also that business standpoint? And there's some avenues that you
Uh-huh.
can start getting to there. But, you know, we only know what we know and don't know what we don't know. And especially
Hmm.
depends on the area you grow up, big cities, small circles of people or friends. You may only know what your parents or maybe your friends' parents do, but maybe do you
Hmm.
really know? Or
Hmm.
what's even available in your area? My
Hmm.
kids went to in a rural school, and if it wasn't related to the huge manufacturing company half mile away or half hour away, or medical, a lot of jobs people didn't necessarily know about. So
Right.
that's where I want to come in, and let's start having some conversations.
Sure.
And I pretty much say I feel like sometimes I give them permission to think about something else, and it can
Right.
open their eyes, but it can also be hard sometimes to go off of what you thought you were supposed to do or what someone else thought you were supposed to do. And that's a big question
Right.
there.
Well, and I think there's also an aspect to your point of like the vanity tag, with a college. There's also a certain aspect of vanity tag with the profession that a kiddo chooses to pursue. So we've got somebody like you. Where do you recommend that families start with exploring these conversations? I mean, the easy answer is call Nate.
Yeah, that's the
And
easy question. Yeah. Or easy answer, I
but like
guess.
That's the easy answer, right? But like, what are some additional resources, but maybe before they're ready to talk to you and hire you to support them in this process, where do they go to find these array of different types of jobs that are out there that we don't know? Like you said, we don't know what we don't know.
Well, and everybody's different, right? So personality types are rated for certain things. If you are truly introverted and have a challenge of working as a group, you're probably not going to maybe want to be involved in, let's just say, teaching or a collaborative work environment when it comes to technology or some other areas that may not fit you. So there are a number of assessments out there, right? When it comes to strength finders or Myers-Briggs or colors or you name it,
Sure.
that you can have your child take, and sometimes I want parents to take them too because I feel like they learn
Hmm.
more about themselves, and then they come asking me, "Can you help me find someone?" And that's actually a
Sure.
conversation I'm having with a former colleague's husband tomorrow who's looking to make a pivot. So
Hmm.
you start thinking, okay, you start learning more about yourself, and that is so key because I don't think, especially here in this the generation that maybe we'll say post COVID and that's coming up, there's not a lot of time I think spent for young people to discover who they are and why they're doing something.
Hmm.
In the days of the Carnegie unit and the process, and here's how you graduate, and here's how you get through, here's how you get good at softball, here's where you need to be. Everything is lined out for you, what you got to wear, when you got to be somewhere, la 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 la. So,
Hmm.
when you can learn more about yourself, it strengthens, going back to that word confidence we talked about in the beginning, it starts creating confidence of, okay, now you're discovering more about who you are, but along the lines, you'll start learning how you work. And
Hmm.
in some of those assessments too, you'll come along a suggestion of professions and industries that you could fit into. So those are good
Hmm.
areas to start. And then, you start Google's an amazing thing, or whatever search engine
Sure.
you want. I've been using
Hmm.
ChatGPT for some things too, just to kind of type in, what is an ENFP that's interested in automobiles, design. You can throw any sort of thing in there, right? What kind of
Hmm.
professions should they look at? Okay, then it starts listing some ideas, and you say, okay, well, how
Sure.
do I get that job? What are some training things? Okay, it'll start listing some things there. I feel like I'm pulling back the curtain here on the Wizard of Oz and showing you kind of some things that happen behind the scenes. But
Sure.
these are some technical things that you can get into, and the value that I add is I'm going to ask some deeper questions around the data we're looking at, and
Well,
you can do this all on your own, but if you want to dive a little bit deeper and start getting into a process, that's where I come in.
well, and I also think that the value that somebody like you adds, or like my husband has coached the kids of NFL Hall of Famers, and they're like, my kids don't listen to me because I'm dad. You and
Yeah,
I, when we're supporting other people's children or other people's teenagers, we have the distinct advantage of not being mom or dad to their kids.
yeah,
They could say the same thing that you and I would say, and they're dumb as dirt. But man, you say it, and it's like a message from on high. So I mean, that right there cannot be undervalued either. And being able to outsource that, and that way parents don't have to take the load of doing that. They can be like, hey, talk to Nate, what's he have to say? And then it just makes it easier on mom and dad. That cannot be underestimated.
yeah. I always say I'm the parent that's not their parent. I've got a 17-year-old
Correct.
old and a 21-year-old. My older
Hmm.
one listens to me more than my younger one does, but at 21, she got to that point. But that's not a role. When you're going through a process, you are really trying to support that child and where some pathways are, and there's some financial pieces in there. But sometimes
Hmm.
you just got to be listening to help answer some questions. I came across a list the other day of, it was like the top 9 things you shouldn't do, uh, you know, preparing your student for college, and one of them was to choose their major. Saying this is what you should do, and
Hmm.
because that's you're taking ownership of it instead of them actually taking ownership of it. I was
Sure.
working with a parent here recently, or a family here recently, and we had got on a post call with the parent after the student, and she was like, I hear this all the time, he was telling you stuff that he doesn't tell me. And I went, That's how it works. I go, you're there, your
100%.
mom. You're not the coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's how some things need to be when it comes to you're that safe place. I can
Yep.
I can be I can ask the hard questions and push some hard
Mm-hmm.
things. You paid me to do that, and that was the service we provided, is to make sure we're trying to get to that solution ultimately, right?
Right.
Is that we're going to help you
Well,
find an answer. But ultimately, there's been some frustration too, and maybe you've seen this along the way too, Clarissa, that they're wanting, just give me the answer. Just tell me what I
mm-hmm.
should do. No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you
Doesn't work that
information,
way.
and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
go through some ideas and what some pathways could be. I'm going to offer up some suggestions on what research and connections you could have, but you ultimately have to do the work, because you will be on your own. You're moving forward, and this is where you start taking responsibility. And again, we go
Mm-hmm.
back to that word, confidence. When they start
Sure.
moving the ball down the road, and they're guiding it, then they start gaining confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge too is they want to know that that is the exact path, the exact answer. And I say it's not going to be. There was an article that came out here a couple months ago, a colleague gave to me, that said by 2035, it's like, it might be more than this, but it's like 70% of the jobs in 2035 don't exist today. So how can I set you up
Wow.
for that? Especially when 75% of the jobs won't exist today, or
Right.
then that exist today. But it comes back to those durable skills. It comes back
Uh,
to you knowing more about who you are, what
mm-hmm.
environment you want to be in, who you want to be around, what are some
Mm-hmm.
things you want to do away from work, what kind of lifestyle do you want to have. Those are some deeper things, especially in today's world of not just trying to find the fancy title with the high salary, which could very well set you on your demise, to find what
Mm-hmm.
else fits into your mental health, your physical health, how you're
Right.
going to spend time in your free time, and are you ultimately going to like doing it?
Right.
That's what it comes down to,
Yeah.
is really trying to find purpose in the pathway, where you're trying to get to, but then reverse
No.
engineer that pathway from there to where they're at
Right.
right now to get to that point.
Right. So, what are some other pathways that you have seen students pursue, or that are perfectly legit and reasonable, that don't include college, that help them get to that place of, I make the money that I need to make to live the lifestyle that I want to live. I've developed the durable skills that are going to prepare me for those jobs, or at least prepare me to learn about those jobs and adapt when the time comes, and that help me maintain my mental health. What are some options that parents may not know about and or may not consider quote unquote valid?
Well, I'm a firm believer, after high school or even during high school, you need some sort of extra training, extra education. Does that happen to be a 4-year school? Could be. 2-year program, certificate program, weekend courses, self learning on the job, that type of thing. You're going to
Mhm.
need something like that to learn from somebody or learn from somewhere. Um, you know, People want to be a real estate agent. A little tough right now. Depends where you're at, but
Right.
you can do that in a matter of like 3 weekends of online courses, and just got to take the
Mhm.
test. As long as you can find a broker that's going to sponsor you,
Sure.
to do that. You know, if you're going to follow a pathway into medicine or engineering, yeah, you're probably going to need to focus on that 4-year pathway, but knowing exactly what that means, and how you get in
Mhm.
and where the pathway goes. But you know, there's so many options right now in the world of technology that you can get on Coursera, you can get on Khan, you can get on some of
Or
these things that are out
Udemy.
there beyond and beyond, to learn how to be a user experience. I won't say engineer, but designer. That
Sure.
there's some companies now that are training on their own because they can't
Mhm.
wait. And this is the luxury we're going to see coming up. I believe here in the next 5 years, because higher ed can't get out of their own way to make a change. A lot of them
Sure.
can't. That you're going to see companies saying, "Why are we waiting for them to train who we need? Why don't we just do it?" And
Sure.
I was told that with our CAPS program we have in Cedar Falls, Iowa, that I was a part of for 7 years, we had somebody from the university say, "I'm a little worried about a program like yours because you're giving them those durable skills opening their eyes to pathways that I then had businesses say, if you're teaching this stuff, I want to hire them now, and then I will train them how I need them. And that's what higher ed's worried about. Or many should be. I wouldn't say they're all worried about it. So they should be worried about it.
Sure.
As far as private industry coming in and doing that training, very well, they may say, I'm going to send you to a higher ed institution to get more training, but they are now hiring for the person, not necessarily for that technical skill set, but that professional skill set.
Yeah. Well, and I also have seen more and more in the last, since COVID especially, a friend of mine's kiddo was going into 8th grade, or was middle school, mid to late middle school when COVID hit. And he looked around him, and now granted, you can't necessarily see the white collar employees working in that situation when we're cloistered at home, right? There was a lot of white collar work still happening. But when he looked at it, he was like, I see basically like the blue collar folks still working. He saw the plumbers still coming out and fixing the leaky toilet, or the roof leak, or he saw the home services professionals. He saw the car mechanics. Cars still needed oil changes, granted, not as frequently because we weren't driving as much. But to his point, he looked at his mom and he was like, Mom, I don't know that I want to go the route of a 4-year college, because the people who are still working are the people that that he could see were people that you don't need a college education to go that degree, or you don't need a degree to go that direction, and he's totally right, and we're also, as you know, my husband and I are recently full-time RVers. And let me tell you something, a simple fix could have been done in a week and a half, took them freaking 8 weeks.
Don't have enough people to do the work.
Well, and that's exactly it.
Yeah.
We know several people now who are RV techs that we're literally looking at sending my husband to RV tech school as just something else he can do on the side. Like, a 5-week program is $10,000. We know somebody who went to, I think they said he invested maybe like $20,000 in tuition for whatever program he went to. He made it back in 3 months.
Yeah.
$80,000 a year. If you've got an 18-year-old kid who's really good with their hands, and we can send them to a 5-week program, 10-week program, something like that, and they can come out making damn near $100,000 a year. Like, why wouldn't we encourage them to do that?
Because I don't get to wear the sweatshirt, Clarissa. If you send Joe to that program, you're not going to be able to wear, the Camping World University sweatshirt or whatever it is. That doesn't exist. Maybe it's good. I don't know.
Right.
Well, say Camping World.
And I think that's just a plug here. Right. Is like, hey, to mom and dad, I think our parting words on this topic would be like, let's look at what's really going to set the kids up for the lifestyle they want to live holistically, right? And if college is the next right fit, great, let's talk college. And if not, let's explore other options, because the world is changing. The day of the company man, as it were, and the golden handshake is not a thing anymore. At least
and I think
the vast majority of it.
I think, and I'm going to relate this to COVID, but I think COVID showed on a couple of things. Life's short. So people were wanting to take opportunities to get out and get away. But also on the other side saw, how they maybe want to be closer to what they know and where they're from. And when I hear talking to a former client from the Northeast that their kid was looking at going to Florida or going to LSU, I'm like, why? Just because of the name? I've got a daughter that's at a school half hour from our house. I see her as often as I want her, and she sees us as often as she wants. But if she runs into car problems, she runs into some jam, she has some challenge, we're not too far away. What is that limit for somebody? Is it 5 hours? Is it a plane ride? Is it what? When you're looking at trying to make a decision like that, I had a high school principal tell me, going through one of my workshops, she said, this is all good. You trying to help students figure out the pathway to the kind of work they are wired for and what the education is. But you don't talk much about, and I have since corrected this, about what kind of life they want to have. Do they want to be around their grandparents? Do they want to be close to their family? Do they want to be able to go hunting in the fall? Do they want to be able to golf year round? Do they want to be able to go to the beach? They want to be able to be with high school friends and family. Those are things we don't quite think about when we're thinking of, I'm going to go off to Stanford. I'm going to go off to Oregon. I'm going to go off to Montana State when I live in when I live in in Glenwood, California, or Glenwood, Iowa, or wherever you want to call it. Okay, let's talk through this. Is it worth the extra out-of-state tuition cost? Is it worth the travel back and forth? Is it, you don't get to come home to homecoming. You don't get together with your friends if you had good high school camaraderie. These are extra things that not everybody has had good experience in high school in their hometowns or whatever. But those are some extra questions to ask of how is this going to work when you're 12 hours away by car, or it's a plane ride that's, trying to get to California is expensive from the Midwest. So how is this going to work? How many times do you want to come home? There's an extra cost in there of being where it is, and money's real. But ultimately it comes down to, if you finding out the work you want to get into, you found somebody who really understands what the pathway is, and asking them, does it really matter where you went to school? If I'm going to work at the law firm on suits, they want me to go to Harvard. They don't want to have me go to Columbia. But if I'm working at a law firm in Algona, Iowa, coming from the University of Minnesota law or Iowa law or Drake is going to be pretty good as well. So putting some of that in perspective.
Absolutely. I had that conversation with a student last night who's very interested in potentially going to school in London. And I was like, that's awesome. Because a lot of schools in Europe are less expensive on a dollar for dollar basis than some of the schools here in the US.
But
I go, but you're not coming home for Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving isn't a thing in London. And if you're okay with that,
is spring break either a thing?
I don't even know. But awesome.
But you got extra costs. You have all that other stuff going on that, that maybe you don't think about. It looks really fun. Looks like it'd be fun to drive a Lamborghini. Okay. Where do you get it serviced? Well, you got to go drive to Chicago to get it serviced. That's right.
Exactly. All right, I'm going to wrap us up, because I know that you and I could talk about this forever, because we see so eye to eye on so many things, and we live in complementary worlds in terms of supporting kids. But we are going to close this conversation out. For anyone listening, if you would like more information, you can find out more about Nate at nateclayberg.com as I fight my dog. If you're wondering what that is going on, I have a dog that really wants to be up in my lap, and we're just trying to push him away. But
it's
now
bedtime.
Nate and I are actually going to go have a conversation in Parent Tween Village, expressly focusing on, I can't even remember what we said. Oh, the advantages of building your professional network while you're in high school and college. So if you are not yet part of Parent Tween Village, you can come on over and join us. And if you are, come on over and tune in and ask questions as we go. Nate, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Anybody who wants to have a further conversation or a debate about this topic, reach out. Free 20-minute conversation. You can book that on my website.
Awesome. And that is, again, simply nateclayberg.com. We will catch you later.
Thanks, Clarissa.